Yes, basically mpola natera tukaniriza ku mukutu gwaffe omuganzi ogumanyikiddwa nga Uganda Mukamooli amanya nedoboozi pampita ntambi chimso the number one rich boy Maxode Junior. Webale kuba nti otambula naffe, webale kuba nti osubscribinga gwe asubscribinga ate nawe atanaba kuba nti osubscribinga nga bakikasero bere nti osubscribinga tutambule ffenna mpola lunaku lwa leero tufunye omukisa tulinako wano omusajja mukulu amanyikiddwa nga Bebe cool alina ensonga zagenda okuba nti atanya n'ensonga zayogeddeko olunaku lwa leero especially kufiirwa mutabanyiwe yafudde ekirwadde ki Bebe cool atugamba nti mutabanyiwe yafudde COVID-19 of course ne TB naye nga ate simusanyufu n'abantu abalina mutabanyiwe abaagaana okuba nti oba abatasobola okuba nti babategeeza in time okuba nti yes bamanya nti mutabanyiwe waabwe mulwadde. Bebe agamba nti shortcut Allan Masengere oba shortcut yafuna ekirwadde kya COVID-19 wali mu Nsambya hospital era nga waliwo omusawo eyabumusiiga. Kino kiraga nti amalwaliro gaffe tulina okugekengera era tulina mukumpi gamba nti oba oliawo omuntu bwafuna ekirwadde oba wafunamu obulwadde wetreatingire waka because n'amalwaliro gye tuddukira okuba nti batujjanjaba nabo bakontributinga okuba nti okukuluzinga obulamu bwaffe. So nolwekyo mutabanyi wa Bebe cool yafiiridde mu bintu ebyekisiru nti yagenda kuba nti afuna treatment ku TB kumbe ng'ate n'omusawo alina COVID-19 kati mu kutuuka mu ddwaliro okuba nti ajjanjaba omusajja oyo oba omukyalo oyo yamukolako yamaliza amusiza ekirwadde n'afuna kye bayita brain TB era musajja wattu yamaliriza afiiriddwe obulamu. Kitegeeza okuba nti obulwadde buno butikidde eggwanga era kati sofa abantu ng'emitwalo 15 ababulina mu Uganda era nga Bebe agamba nti Nambole Stadium bagenda kuba nga bagyopeningawo. Ngenda kuba nti mbatuusako Bebe producer wange sooka olete Bebe ayogereko eri abantu then after tukomewo mpola subscribe muganda wange atambule ffenna mu system za Uganda Mukamooli bampita ntambi Jimso.
Now my sister had just given birth to this little baby. And this baby was about 1.5 months. So within that 1.5 months, my sister had asthma. So one of those times there was a roadblock. I used to stay in Kanyanya. So on the main road, that's where my grandmama's house was, where we used to live in. So there was a roadblock. And I think there was an issue of thieves or something happened there, and then there was tear gas sprayed in the night. So because my sister had an issue with asthma, that moment she developed an attack, which all of a sudden took her life. I remember I was a very young boy when my mom walked out of that bedroom, because it was me, my mom, and that sick sister of mine in that bedroom with shortcut at 1.5 months. I remember my mother walking out of that bedroom crying. First, before that, it was about 2:30 in the morning when my sister started asking my mother for water because she was feeling so thirsty. My mother refused to give her water because she always knew that people in such conditions, if you give them water or a drink, they usually don't survive. But my sister insisted and she was crying until when my mother decided to give her just some little milk. And at that note, earlier, Shortcut was crying the whole, like the 6 hours before that moment. Baby was crying throughout the last 6 hours before that moment. So what happened is my sister heard that the baby was crying, so she whispered to my mom and said, bring the baby and put the baby on my legs. So I personally brought the baby and put the baby on the legs, and the baby, who was crying for 6 hours non-stop without anyone knowing, all of a sudden decided to keep quiet. So at about 3:30, I had my mom come out of the bedroom crying. So I had to rush into the bedroom, and my mom had not good news anyway. Of course, as a mother, she was weak, and she had accepted that she has lost her daughter because my sister was dying at that moment, and the baby was still on the legs. So I picked up the baby at 10 years and then walked out of the bedroom. And that began the journey of Moses Ali Bebe and Shortcut Allan. Now, for 32 years, this boy has been in my face. For 32 years. From that moment of 1.5 months when that boy lost the mother, that boy became my son. Those days there were no pampers, there were nappies. Zena musibanga nappi. Nga nina emyaka 10. So omwana gwe nasooka okulera mu bulamu bwange is Shortcut. So he was a very lovely baby, very, 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 let me see, I'll get some pictures. I'll keep showing you a few things on my phone. Was a very handsome, lovely baby. Kugamba nga toyina ngeri gy'oyinza butamwagala. Very quiet. Nga si muntu basically, I don't know how to say it. So this is Shortcut. Oba omulaba awo nga kito kiraba. And I'll show you a picture of my sister, and then you'll be surprised on how things happen. And this is my sister. You can see the resemblance maximally. These two look alike. So this was my elder sister, and she was my favorite, and she's the mother. So she died 32 years ago. So because I loved my sister so much, I felt like this boy Shortcut was always there to represent my sister. So that is now the journey. That's how the journey began. Now, Shortcut Allan Masengere ceased to be my nephew, and he became my firstborn. Now, many may ask, how comes it has not been put out there before? So many people have ways they deal with issues in their families, but Shortcut has been around me for all that time. But of course, as a young man, he had his own life. I remember when we got shot, when I got shot, he was also shot. We were in hospital together. We've gone through nearly everything together. I got a bit annoyed with him because he wasn't doing the things I was asking him to do, of course, as a father. But of course, as a son, he was a young man. He's a young man, 30 years old. He's in that age where he had things he wanted to do as him. But because, of course, I'm a bit older, I was kind of subjecting him to, to do what I want him to do. And those two never come together. So I got a bit mad at him. And Shortcut is a very quiet guy. So he kept quiet. But we've been in touch anyway until when the quarantine came in, when he joined a few friends there. But unfortunately, he stayed with friends who never communicated to us that the boy was sick. So until when this guy calls my wife and says, Shortcut is in hospital in Salama Road in a clinic. You guys come for your family member. So I was so much in shock and so angry for the possibility of having had my son sick somewhere, and responsible Ugandans knew that they were living with a sick person, and they never at any one time communicated to me. Here is a point when they are communicating when they cannot do anything. And they are even stating that come for your family member, come for your relative. For me, I cannot handle him. But rumor says that a few friends were with Shortcut before, and they could see that this boy was sick. But even then, maybe those friends I cannot blame, because you see the issue was they did not know how much, or maybe they didn't know, but somehow I think they knew. But all I say is, at least when you have people who are sick, please let the families know, because it's more or less not your responsibility when those people worsen. It's the responsibility of the family. It's very bad when you approach the family when it's late. So we have been in, when we were called, we went to Nsambya Hospital. I sent him to Nsambya Hospital, and we have been on that journey of Nsambya Hospital for 1.5 months. This is a very difficult time where, of course, the country is facing a lot of COVID-19. So there was a lot happening. The doctors, I personally went into Nsambya Hospital. I approached the doctors. We started on the young man. We did all kinds of tests. We did scans, MRI. The hospital did its first test of COVID, and everything was moving well until when they diagnosed tuberculosis on the brain. It was a bit difficult to find out what was wrong with that boy until when the diagnosis was final and treatment was started. I actually felt so happy when they told me that it was tuberculosis, because then I know my way around tuberculosis, and that I had people who I would call to consult. And indeed I called Dr. Stavia, who is the head of NTLP tuberculosis at the Ministry of Health. I called a few more people to confirm. I knew about tuberculosis in the lungs. I know there's tuberculosis of the bones, but I had not known about the possibility of TB for the brain. So these are some of the things that were happening in that 1.5 months. So he went through a very difficult time until when he couldn't breathe. Then we went into ICU in Nsambya Hospital. He stayed in ICU for 5 days, and then he came out very well out of ICU. We went back to the ward, and the doctors were doing everything they could do. I personally decided to have Shortcut in a general ward, not in a private room, because of several reasons. One, I felt like I should be close to where the many doctors and nurses were. And two, I felt like we should live a normal life like Ugandans and see what exactly happens in the general wards. Because of course you hear a lot of negativity, most especially for Nsambya Hospital, there's a lot of negativity about it. So I said, no, let us stay. So we stayed for 1.5 months in a general ward in Nsambya Hospital. Now, events that lead to the death of Shortcut, first and foremost, when he was leaving the ICU, I called KCCA and I requested for a COVID test, my first COVID test. Of course, the hospital had done its first COVID test a bit behind, but I said that because there was 2 deaths of COVID in Nsambya Hospital that came, but those deaths came after my first request. I wasn't very sure about what's happening, because so many people are entering into hospitals and you do not know what they are sick of. My fellow Ugandans, I want you to listen to me and listen to this part of COVID. We were in this hospital for 1.5 months. We were in the ICU for 1 week, 5 days, I mean. So I personally asked the doctors if it was okay for me to call the KCCA to come and take samples of COVID from my son weekly. Weekly. That is samples from him and samples from 2 bedside nurses. And they accepted. So the first sample was taken. When the first sample was taken, it came back after 4 days, it was negative. So now, those are 2 negatives. The first one was done by the doctors, which was negative. The second one also, that Bebe did, the first that belongs to me, that was the second test, negative. So that negative, that's when we left and we went back to the ward. So 4 days in the ward, I again called the KCCA to come back and take another COVID test. So that is the test, the last test that was taken, and it was taken on Saturday. So when that test was taken on Saturday, last week, not this Saturday because today is Monday, but the other Saturday, we expected the results to be back on Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday. Now, we got a scenario where Shortcut had issues with the breathing. Remember, he was diagnosed with tuberculosis. And of course, these are the lungs. So I went deep inside. We did all the scannings, the MRI and everything. And I started asking all my questions until when the doctors explained to me all the way till the lymph nodes in the lungs for the possibility, because I was asking why Shortcut was having a problem with the breathing. And then I got the answers. And then I came out of the hospital, I called other doctors, and then they were explaining the same thing. Of course, patients with TB will have a problem with the breathing because it affected the lungs. Because first it was on the brain, but it was moving down in the lungs. So he was creating a lot of water in the diaphragm, one side of the diaphragm, that is one side of the lung. So they were sucking water out of him, and he was then okay. But remember, at the same time, he was creating a lot of sputum. Now, this same sputum, they could nebulize, they used to nebulize him. Then the nebulization gas breaks down the sputum, and then they bring a machine to suck out the sputum so that the lungs can breathe easily. Okay? So, all these processes, I was there, I was aware, and we were going through the whole thing in my clear brain, with my clear brain. Now, last Saturday when they took the test, on Sunday, actually that same Saturday the boy was very fine, and then all over the sudden on Sunday, he was even better. He started to, to bonga, and basically he was back. He was back. And then came in Monday, the day when I decided not to go there. Was Monday, because I was asking the nurses, the bedside nurse and the doctors, and they were telling me, no, it's fine. Every family member went there, and I remember, I'm going to show you a short video here of Shortcut on Sunday. This is, as I remember, they sent it to me and I sent it to my mom. I'll show you this short video so that you can see that this guy had actually moved positively. If you look well here, you can see that he had gotten a smile on Monday. He's back. Okay. Okay, that's actually one. I could also show you some clips. I'm going to show you another clip that shows you how bad Shortcut was before that. So this is one of the other clips. At this moment, so you can imagine from that to the other one where he's smiling. So the doctors had done a good job and we were following up. But on Monday, he got the breathing problem again on Monday evening. It was about 6 o'clock. They called me. They told me he's not breathing well. So I asked the doctors, is it okay? I come in and what can we do? The doctor said, no, we are going to go through the same thing. We are going to do the nebulization and then we suck out, we pump out the whole, the sputum. So as we had done it before, I thought it was the same thing. So they did it and they kept on doing it the whole night. But Shortcut, the breathing became difficult and he needed at that moment to be put back into ICU. Now, prior, we wanted to take him to a different hospital, say Mulago Hospital, but Mulago Hospital had the doctor said they had no nurse for the ICU bed. We went to different hospitals, but they could not admit. Nakasero Hospital was full, and then Novich gave some silly lame excuses that I would agree because it's your private hospital, it's okay. But I think this is where also government is going to look into certain things quickly. Here I was told at Novich that they are servicing their machines in the ICU. But of course they were worried about the COVID issue, and that's why they did not take in the patient. So we were stuck in Zambia Hospital, and at the same time Zambia Hospital, the ICU was closed at that moment because it had 2 patients who had died of COVID. So they had sprayed it and they had closed it. And of course, in suspense, you would expect that definitely the doctors and the nurses who are working in the ICU also were under quarantine. So that means Zambia Hospital ICU was out, which is understandable. So when this was happening to Shortcut on Monday evening, we had no option of ICU until Tuesday morning. Is it Tuesday morning? Yes, Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning, when we went to the hospital at about 5 in the morning, because he wasn't fine. He was tired. Actually, it was Tuesday morning. We went to the hospital, and that's when we, luckily enough, called different other hospitals, and I had the certificate that he was COVID-free. The other one